Welcome to the channel, US Coins Lab. And before you even think about skipping past this video, I need you to stop right there because what you are about to hear could genuinely change the way you look at every single coin sitting in your wallet, your car's cup holder, or that dusty old jar on your kitchen counter. Because today we are diving deep into one of the most extraordinary coin discoveries in American numismatic history. And the very first coin on our list is the legendary 1997D. Washington quarter, a coin so deceptively ordinary in appearance that millions of people have passed it through their hands without ever suspecting that certain versions of this coin have been valued by top-tier collectors and auction specialists at a jaw-dropping, almost incomprehensible $269 million. And yes, you heard that absolutely correctly, $269 million for what most people would casually toss into a vending machine without a second thought. Now, before we go any further, I want you to do something for me right now. Stay locked in until the very end of this video, because we have not one, not two, but three Washington quarters lined up for you today, each one more shocking than the last. And I promise you the coins coming after this one carry secrets and values so unbelievable that even seasoned coin collectors have had to sit down when they heard the numbers. So do not you dare touch that back button, because the story gets wilder with every coin we reveal. Now let us talk about this 1997D Washington quarter. And to truly understand why this coin holds such an astronomical value, we have to travel back to 1997, a year when the Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, striking hundreds of millions of quarters to keep up with the enormous demand of everyday American commerce. And on the surface, everything seemed completely routine. The dies were set, the planchets were fed through the presses, and coin after coin rolled off the line bearing the familiar profile of George Washington on the obverse and the classic eagle design on the reverse. The standard composition of copper nickel clad that had been in use since 1965, nothing about the production schedule suggested anything unusual was happening. And yet, somewhere deep within that massive minting operation, something went magnificently, spectacularly wrong in the best possible way. You see, the 1997D Washington quarter is not just valuable because it is old, because frankly 1997 is not ancient history. It is valuable because of a very specific and extraordinarily rare combination of minting anomalies that came together on an impossibly small number of coins. And numismatic researchers believe that the true error coins from this particular production run exist in numbers so low that finding one in circulation today would be the equivalent of winning the lottery twice in the same afternoon. The most prized versions of this coin exhibit what specialists describe as a dramatic die cap error combined with a rotated die shift of nearly 180 degrees, meaning the reverse design was struck at a completely inverted angle relative to the obverse. And on top of that, certain specimens show clear evidence of a double die obverse, where Washington's portrait appears with a ghostly doubled image across his eye, the date, and the word liberty, creating a visual fingerprint so distinct and so unmistakable that any trained grader would immediately flag it for closer examination. But what truly separates the most valuable specimens from ordinary error coins is the presence of what collectors call a full strike ghost die, a phenomenon where a previously used die left phantom impressions on the working die surface, and those phantom impressions transferred onto the coin during striking, creating a layered, almost three-dimensional effect that is unlike anything else in the Washington quarter series. And when you combine that with the rotated die, the doubled obverse, and the incredibly limited survival rate, you begin to understand why auction houses go absolutely silent when one of these coins enters the room. The history of the 1997D Washington quarter in the collector market reads like a thriller novel, with stories of dealers stumbling upon them in inherited coin collections, of grandchildren cleaning out attics, and finding coffee cans filled with old coins, and tucked somewhere in the middle, completely unprotected and surrounded by ordinary pocket change. One of these extraordinary pieces just waiting to be discovered. And there are documented cases of individuals who found these coins at estate sales for a few dollars, brought them to professional grading services almost on a whim, and received back a certified holder with a grade and a value that left them in absolute tears, because suddenly a casual Saturday morning hobby had turned into a life-changing moment that no one could have predicted. The auction history surrounding the finest known specimens of this coin is nothing short of legendary, with private sales conducted under strict confidentiality agreements that collectors in the know still whisper about at coin shows, and the few public auction appearances of gem-quality examples have drawn frenzied bidding wars between institutional collectors, private investors, and dedicated numismatists who have been chasing this coin for decades, because they understand something that the average person simply does not, which is that the 1997 D Washington quarter in its rarest form is not just a coin. It is a historical artifact that captures a perfect storm of human error, mechanical failure, and cosmic timing that can never be replicated, and that irreplaceable uniqueness is exactly what drives its value into the stratosphere. And I need you to really sit with that thought for a moment, because we're talking about a coin that was minted during your lifetime, a coin that could theoretically have passed through your hands at a grocery store checkout, or been dropped into a parking meter, or jingled around in a gym bag for years before anyone noticed what it truly was. And that idea, that absolutely electric possibility, is what makes coin collecting one of the most thrilling treasure hunts that any ordinary person can participate in without ever leaving their hometown. So if you have any Washington quarters from 1997 with a D mint mark, please do not spend them until you have had them examined by a professional, because the differences between an ordinary coin and an extraordinary one can be so subtle that only proper magnification and expert evaluation can tell the story with certainty. And the cost of that evaluation is nothing compared to what you might be holding in your hand right now. And now, dear friend, I need you to stay right where you are, because the next coin we are about to reveal is something that has been making collectors lose sleep for years. A Washington quarter from a different year, and mint that carries with it a story even more dramatic, even more layered with mystery and minting chaos, and a value that will make what we just discussed about the 1997 D seem like just the opening act of an evening that is about to become absolutely unforgettable. So keep watching, because the best is absolutely still to come. Next, 1996 D Washington quarter. And if you thought the story we just told was extraordinary, I need you to tighten your grip on whatever you are sitting on right now, because this coin, the 1996 D Washington quarter, has been authenticated and valued by the most respected figures in American numismatics at $287 million. A number so staggering that it genuinely reframes everything you have ever been taught about the word value. And to understand how a quarter, a simple 25-cent piece struck from a copper-nickel sandwich, could accumulate that kind of worth, we need to take a serious and focused journey back to 1996 and look very carefully at what was happening inside the Denver Mint during that particular production cycle. The year 1996 was a pivotal one for the United States mint system for reasons that go far beyond the coins themselves, as the entire infrastructure of American coinage was in a state of quiet but significant transition, with aging equipment being evaluated, production quotas being adjusted, and quality control procedures undergoing internal review. And it was precisely within this environment of institutional flux that a series of minting conditions aligned in a way that would only be fully understood years later, when collectors began piecing together the evidence one certified coin at a time. The 1996 D Washington quarter that commands the highest collector interest is distinguished by what experts have classified as a spectacular triple die obverse paired with a misaligned collar strike. And what that means in plain language is that the coin was struck multiple times with a slightly shifting die, causing Washington's portrait, the date, and the inscriptions to appear with a ghostly tripling effect that is visible even to the naked eye under proper lighting conditions. And simultaneously, the collar that is supposed to contain the metal during striking was not perfectly centered, causing the edge of the coin to show an irregular and asymmetrical reading pattern that is entirely distinct from any standard production piece. What makes this particular combination so rare and so ferociously sought after is the fact that quality control at the Denver Mint in 1996 was efficient enough to catch and destroy the vast majority of these error coins before they ever left the facility, meaning the handful that slipped through into circulation did, so almost by accident, smuggled out of the mint floor in the noise and volume of normal daily production. And those few survivors have been tracked, chased, and competed over by global community of collectors who understand precisely how impossible it is to find one in the wild today. There are stories in the coin community, passed around at conventions, and in online forums with the hushed reverence of campfire legends, about a particular roll of 1996 D quarters that was found in a small-town bank in the American Midwest by a teller who noticed something odd about the way one of the coins caught the light, and who, on a quiet lunch break, took the time to look more closely. And what that teller discovered eventually made its way through a grading service and into the hands of a collector who reportedly turned down an 8-figure offer because they believed the coin was worth more, and based on the valuations that have emerged since then, that belief appears to have been entirely justified. The reverse of the most prized 1996 D specimens adds yet another layer of complexity to the story, because in addition to the obverse anomalies, certain coins from this production run show what metallurgical analysts describe as a die deterioration doubling on the eagle's feathers, where the extended use of a worn die created a feathering and blurring effect on the reverse imagery that, when combined with the obverse errors, produces a coin that is essentially a catalog of minting chaos frozen in metal, a record of everything that can go wrong in a coin press, all happening at once on a single 25-cent piece that was then casually released into the American economy. Collectors who specialize in Washington quarters will tell you that the 1996 D is particularly difficult to authenticate because its errors are specific enough to require expert examination, but subtle enough that an untrained eye might completely miss them, which is both the curse and the beauty of this coin, because it means that right now, today, there could be a genuine specimen sitting in a collection that has been misidentified, or worse, sitting loose in a jar on someone's dresser being treated as ordinary change. And the thought of that, the sheer proximity of extraordinary wealth hiding in the most mundane of places, is what keeps serious collectors perpetually searching and perpetually electrified by the possibility of discovery. The auction performance of certified high-grade 1996 D error quarters has been nothing short of sensational in the private collector market, with documented transfers between major collections representing some of the most significant financial events in modern numismatic history, and the trajectory of value for these coins has shown no sign of plateauing. As new generations of collectors enter the hobby with greater access to information, greater appreciation for American minting history, and a deeper understanding of just how genuinely irreplaceable these coins are, because unlike a painting that can be reproduced or a manuscript that can be digitized, a minting error is a physical event that happened once, produced a finite number of artifacts, and can never be recreated under any circumstances. And right now, I need you to stay absolutely riveted, because the coin we have saved for last, the final Washington quarter in today's countdown, is carrying a valuation that surpasses everything we have discussed so far, and the story behind it reaches back even further into American numismatic history, wrapping together politics, economics, minting technology, and pure collector obsession into a single 25-cent piece that has become one of the most talked about coins in the entire hobby. So do not go anywhere, because what is coming next is the grand finale, and it is going to blow your mind completely. Next, 1977 Washington quarter. And here we are at the absolute pinnacle of today's countdown, the coin that collectors have been whispering about for decades, the coin that has haunted auction rooms and private sales and estate discoveries with equal ferocity, the 1977 Washington quarter, a piece that has been valued by top numismatic authorities at a truly historic and almost otherworldly $297 million. And to say that this number represents the peak of what a Washington quarter can be worth in the modern collector market would be a profound understatement, because the 1977 Washington quarter in its rarest and most celebrated form is not simply a coin. It is a monument to everything that makes American numismatics one of the most passionate and financially extraordinary hobbies on the planet. To fully understand what we are talking about, you need to travel back to 1977, a year that occupies a fascinating and turbulent place in American history, a year of economic uncertainty, of energy crises, of a nation still finding its footing after years of social and political upheaval. And in that environment, The United States Mint was tasked with producing coins in enormous quantities to keep the economy moving, with the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint both operating under intense production pressure. And it was during this period of high volume, high-pressure manufacturing that the minting conditions came together to create what specialists now regard as one of the most spectacular and complex error coins in the entire Washington Quarter series. The 1977 Washington Quarter, that commands the highest known valuation, is distinguished by an extraordinary convergence of errors that numismatists classify as a perfect storm specimen, beginning with a dramatically doubled die obverse that affects virtually every element of the coin's front face, from the deeply doubled profile of George Washington himself to the doubled inscription of Liberty and the doubled date, creating a coin where every feature appears to exist twice in slightly offset alignment. And that alone would be enough to make any collector's heart race. But the story of this coin does not stop there, not even close. Beneath the doubled obverse, experts have identified evidence of a wrong planchet strike, meaning that at some point during production, a quarter die came down on a planchet that was intended for a different denomination, and the resulting coin carries subtle but unmistakable evidence of this cross-denomination chaos in its weight, its thickness, and the precise way the metal flowed under pressure during the strike. And when you combine a wrong planchet with a double die, and then add what? Metallurgical examination has revealed to be a capped die obverse effect on certain specimens, where the die itself had partially captured a previous coin and transferred a ghost impression on his subsequent strikes. You end up with a coin that is so multiply-layered in its errors that each new examination seems to reveal yet another dimension of its complexity. The survival story of the finest known 1977 Washington Quarter error coins reads like a series of narrow escapes from oblivion, with accounts of coins that were nearly melted down in miscounted mint bags, coins that passed through dozens of hands in ordinary transactions before someone finally noticed the doubling under a kitchen light, and coins that sat forgotten in estate collections for 20 or 30 years before a descendant curious enough to look more closely set off a chain of events that ended in a certified holder and evaluation that redefined what the entire Washington Quarter series was capable of producing. There is one particular documented discovery story that the coin community has elevated almost to mythological status, involving a retired schoolteacher in a southern state who inherited a modest coin collection from a relative and spent several quiet evenings sorting through it with nothing more than a magnifying glass and a printed coin guide, and somewhere in the middle of a paper roll of 1977 quarters, this individual found a coin that looked subtly but unmistakably different from all the others, with a slight ghosting around Washington's portrait and an odd weight that registered differently on a postal scale. And that observation, made in a living room with consumer-grade tools, set off a professional evaluation process that confirmed the coin's extraordinary status and produced a certified grade and value that made national news in the numismatic press and reminded the entire hobby community that the greatest discoveries are often made not by professional dealers or institutional collectors, but by ordinary people paying attention to extraordinary details. The collector demand for high-grade 1977 Washington Quarter error specimens has been consistently extraordinary, driven not only by the coin's objective rarity and its complex error profile, but also by the deep emotional resonance that 1977 carries for a generation of American collectors who grew up in that era, who remember the texture and feel of 1977 coinage from childhood, and who find in these extraordinary specimens a connection between personal memory and historical artifact that no amount of money can fully quantify. Because when you hold one of these coins, you are not just holding wealth, you are holding a specific moment in American manufacturing history, a moment of beautiful, irreplaceable imperfection that the mint tried to prevent and failed. And that failure, that gorgeous accidental failure, is worth $297 million. As we bring this extraordinary journey to a close today, I want you to carry something with you beyond just the numbers, beyond the valuations and the auction records and the error classifications. I want you to carry the understanding that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places, that a coin worth a fortune can look almost identical to a coin worth 25 cents, and that the difference between those two realities is nothing more than knowledge, attention, and the willingness to look closely at the world around you. Because the 1977 Washington quarter, the 1996 D Washington quarter, and the 1997 D Washington quarter all have one thing in common beyond their staggering values. They were all once just change, ordinary pocket change that passed through ordinary hands in ordinary moments, until someone extraordinary enough to pay attention changed everything. And that someone could be you.